Readings of Almighty God's words on the pursuit of the truth.
How to pursue the truth. 7. During this season, our main topic of fellowship has been how to pursue the truth. We previously summarized 2 principles of practice for pursuing the truth. What is the first principle? The first principle is letting go, and the second is dedicating. We have not finished fellowshipping about the topic of letting go. What is the first theme of letting go?
Letting go of various negative emotions.
What did we mainly fellowship about in terms of letting go of various negative emotions? We mainly fellowshipped about and revealed the negative emotions that people experience. That is, what types of negative emotions often accompany people in their daily lives and on their life path, as well as how to let go of them. These negative emotions manifest as a kind of feeling within people, but in reality, they are triggered by various fallacious thoughts and beliefs, which people hold. Various negative emotions are triggered due to different thoughts and viewpoints in people, and are revealed and exhibited in them. Based on the issues of negative emotions we fellowshipped about earlier, the various behaviors of people and their various thoughts and viewpoints, what problems do you see? In other words, by dissecting the external manifestations of various negative emotions, can you perceive some underlying essence to people's thoughts? When negative emotions are exhibited in a person, if we delve deeper and carefully dissect them, we can observe their various incorrect views, perspectives, and attitudes toward people, events, and things hidden within those negative emotions, and even see their approaches to handling and sorting out various people, matters, and things from within them, right? So, from the various times we have fellowshipped about dissecting these negative emotions, can we say that people's various erroneous, fallacious, biased, negative, and adverse thoughts and viewpoints are concealed within their negative emotions? Can we say that? What did I just say?
God just said that people's various erroneous, fallacious, biased, negative, and adverse thoughts and viewpoints are concealed within their negative emotions.
Have you understood me clearly? If we don't fellowship about these negative emotions, people may not pay much attention to the temporary or long-term negative emotions that come to the surface. However, after dissecting the various thoughts and viewpoints hidden within negative emotions, do people acknowledge this fact? Various negative thoughts and viewpoints are concealed within people's different negative emotions. In other words, when a person experiences negative emotions, on the surface, these may appear as certain feelings. They might vent their emotions, say depressing things, spread lifelessness and bring about certain negative results, or do things that are relatively extreme. This is what is revealed outwardly. However, behind these manifestations of negative emotions and extreme behaviors, there actually exist various negative thoughts and viewpoints in people. Therefore, although we have been discussing negative emotions during this period, in reality, we are dissecting people's various negative thoughts and viewpoints by exposing and dissecting their different negative emotions. why do we expose these thoughts and viewpoints? Do these negative thoughts and viewpoints only affect people's emotions? Is it solely because they give rise to negative emotions in people? No. These erroneous thoughts and viewpoints do not only influence one's emotions and pursuits. However, their emotions and external behaviors are what people can see and perceive. Therefore, we use the simple and convenient method of dissecting negative emotions to expose people's various negative, adverse, and inappropriate thoughts and viewpoints. We expose these thoughts, viewpoints, and negative emotions because these thoughts and viewpoints are related to people's perspective and stance toward viewing people and things, comporting themselves, and acting in real life. They also have to do with people's survival goals and direction, and naturally also with their views on life. Hence, we have carried out this exposure of certain negative emotions. Regardless, the main purpose of fellowshipping about various negative emotions is to expose, dissect, and resolve people's various fallacious, negative, and adverse thoughts and viewpoints. By our revealing these negative thoughts and viewpoints, people will be able to clearly recognize the incorrect views, attitudes, and perspectives that exist in their thoughts toward various people, events, and things. This helps to resolve the various negative emotions caused by these negative thoughts and viewpoints, and thus allows people to recognize and see through these fallacious thoughts and viewpoints, after which they can seek the correct path, let go of them, and completely abandon them. The ultimate goal is to develop the ability to face, approach, handle, and resolve various people, events, and things one encounters in their day-to-day life or over the course of their life, with the correct thoughts and viewpoints. In summary, what is the desired outcome? It is to enable people to recognize and see through the various negative thoughts present within themselves, and after recognizing them, to continuously change and correct these erroneous thoughts and viewpoints in their lives and life paths, to seek, accept, or submit to the correct thoughts and viewpoints that align with the truth, and ultimately, to live and comport themselves with the right thoughts and viewpoints. That is the purpose. Do you agree? On the surface, we expose people's negative emotions, but in fact, we expose their fallacious thoughts and viewpoints toward different people, events, and things. It aims to enable people to use the correct thoughts and viewpoints when encountering various people, events, and things, to face and handle them, and ultimately, act in accordance with the truth principles when viewing people and things, comporting themselves, and acting. Doesn't this return to the theme of how to pursue the truth? Fellowshipping about letting go of various negative emotions ultimately still returns to the broader topic of how to pursue the truth without deviating from the main theme, right? At first, some people may think, letting go of various negative emotions doesn't seem to have much to do with pursuing the truth. Negative emotions are just temporary moods or momentary thoughts and ideas. If it's a momentary thought or a temporary mood, it doesn't fall within the scope of the negative emotions we are fellowshipping about. These negative emotions involve issues of principle and substance related to how people view others and things and how they comport themselves and act. They involve the correct viewpoints, stances, and principles that people should uphold in life, as well as their views on life and ways of living. The ultimate purpose of fellowshipping about these is to enable people, when faced with various matters in life, to no longer handle these matters with their naturalness or hot-headedness, or to deal with these issues using their corrupt dispositions. It also means, of course, they won't handle these problems based on the various satanic philosophies instilled in them by society. Instead, they will approach them in the right way, with the conscience and reason that a person should at least possess when dealing with the problems encountered in life. Furthermore, under the basic conditions of normal human conscience and reason, they will treat the various people, events, and things involved and encountered in life and existence according to God's words, the truth, and the various principles taught by God. Fellowshipping about and dissecting various negative emotions is intended for the sake of achieving this objective. Do you understand? Tell me.
God's objective in fellowshipping about and dissecting these negative emotions is to enable people to discern and turn around the erroneous thoughts and viewpoints within their negative emotions, thereby letting go of these negative emotions and relying on conscience and reason to correctly handle and deal with the various people, events, and things they encounter in life according to God's words and the truth principles. This allows them to gradually change their view on life, to view people and things based on the truth, to comport themselves and act in accordance with the truth, and to live out their normal humanity.
If I didn't fellowship about or dissect these negative emotions, if I neither fellowshipped about nor exposed people's various negative thoughts and viewpoints, then when people encountered problems in their daily lives, they would often take the wrong stance and perspective, facing, handling, and resolving these matters with fallacious thoughts and viewpoints. In this way, to a large extent, people would often be constrained, bound, and controlled by these negative thoughts, unable to handle various problems in life according to God's requirements, or the principles and methods revealed in God's words. Of course, if a person has the correct thoughts and viewpoints toward various people, events, and things, as well as the right perspective and stance, it will greatly assist them when they encounter these people, events, and things, to handle them with the correct perspective, or at least within the scope of normal human conscience and reason, and avoid handling various issues in a hot-headed way or according to their corrupt dispositions, which can lead to unnecessary trouble and bring about unwanted consequences. For example, how a person approaches the future, illness, family, marriage, affections, money, relationships between people, and their own talents, as well as their social status and worth, and other similar issues, is based on what they have heard, learned, or been influenced and affected by in their family or society before coming to an understanding of the truth, not to mention some experiences or methods they have come up with themselves. Each person has their own unique way of approaching things, and each person emphasizes a certain attitude when dealing with matters. Of course, there is a common factor in the different ways people approach things, in that they are all dominated and governed by negative, adverse, fallacious or biased thoughts and viewpoints. Their ultimate aim is to achieve their own fame, fortune, and self-interest. To be more specific, these thoughts and viewpoints come from the installation and teachings of Satan. It can also be said that they originate from the various fallacious thoughts and viewpoints that Satan spreads, advocates, and nurtures throughout humankind. Under the direction of these fallacious thoughts and viewpoints, people unconsciously use them to protect themselves and ensure the maximization of their own interests. They try their best to utilize these various thoughts and viewpoints that originate from society and the world to safeguard themselves and seek the maximization of their own benefits in order to attain their self-interests. Of course, this quest for attainment stops at nothing and goes beyond moral boundaries as well as conscience and reason. Therefore, under the direction of these negative emotions and negative thoughts and viewpoints, the ultimate result of how people view others and things and how they comport themselves and act can only lead to mutual exploitation, deception, harm, and conflicts among people. Eventually, under the direction, bondage, or enticement of various negative thoughts and viewpoints, people will drift further away from God's requirements, or even from the principles of how to comport oneself and act as taught by God. It can also be said that, under the direction and enticement of various negative thoughts, people will never truly gain the truth or enter into the reality of practicing the truth as required by God. It also becomes difficult for them to abide by the principle of basing their views on people and things and their comportment and actions on God's words, with the truth as their criterion. Therefore, as people resolve their own negative emotions, in actuality, they are also required to let go of various negative thoughts and viewpoints. Only when people recognize the various erroneous thoughts and viewpoints within themselves can they let go of every kind of negative emotion. Of course, as people let go of various negative thoughts and viewpoints, their negative emotions are also largely resolved. For example, let's consider the depressive emotions we fellowshipped about earlier. In simple terms, if a person gives rise to these negative emotions because they constantly feel that their fate is bad, then when they hold onto the thoughts and viewpoints that their fate is bad, they unconsciously sink into the emotion of depression. Moreover, their subjective consciousness increasingly reinforces the belief that their fate is bad. Whenever they encounter something slightly difficult or challenging, they think, "Oh, my fate is bad." They attribute it to their bad fate. As a result, they live in the negative emotions of despair, self-abandonment, and depression. If people can correctly face the various difficulties they encounter in life, or seek the truth when negative thoughts and viewpoints arise, relying on God's words to face them, recognizing what human destiny is all about, and believing that their fate is in God's hands and that He is in control, they can then approach these adversities, challenges, obstacles, and difficulties in life correctly, or understand these struggles correctly. In doing so, does their thought and viewpoint of having a bad fate change any? At the same time, do they gain a proper stance to face these problems? When people have the right stance in confronting these issues, Their feelings of depression gradually improve, changing from severe to moderate, transitioning from moderate to mild, until, from a mild state, they dissipate completely and disappear from their being. Consequently, their feelings of depression cease to exist. What is the reason for this? It is because their previously held thought and viewpoint of "my fate is bad" undergoes a transformation. After it is corrected, they no longer view their fate with a sense of depression, but approach issues with a proactive and optimistic attitude, the methods of God's teachings, and the perspective of the essence of destiny He has revealed to humanity. Therefore, when faced with the same problem they encountered before, they no longer view their destiny through the thoughts and viewpoints of having a bad fate, and they no longer resist or rebel against these issues with feelings of depression. Although initially they may ignore or handle them with indifference, over time, as they delve deeper into the pursuit of truth and grow in stature, as their perspective and stance in viewing people and things become increasingly correct, their feelings of depression not only disappear, but they also become more proactive and optimistic. Eventually, they gain a complete understanding and clear insight into the nature of human destiny. They can handle and approach these matters correctly, with an attitude or reality of submission to God's orchestration. At that point, they have completely let go of their feelings of depression. Letting go of negative emotions is such a process. It is a significant topic in life. In summary, when a negative emotion takes root deep within a person's heart, or influences how they view people and things, and how they comport themselves and act, it is without doubt more than just a simple negative emotion. Behind it lies an incorrect thought or viewpoint regarding this, that, or another matter. In such cases, what you need to do is not only analyze the source of the negative emotions, but more importantly, examine the hidden killer within your negative emotions. This hidden element is a negative thought or viewpoint that has deeply rooted itself within your heart over a long period. A wrong or fallacious thought or viewpoint toward dealing with things. In terms of fallacious and negative aspects, this thought or viewpoint definitely contradicts the truth and stands in opposition to it. At this point, your task is not simply to think about, dissect, and become acquainted with it, but rather to thoroughly understand the harm it poses to you, the control and bondage it exerts over you, and the negative impact it has on your pursuit of truth. Therefore, what you need to do is to expose, dissect, and recognize various negative thoughts and viewpoints. At the same time, you must seek God's words to discern and see through to them according to the truth principles fellowshipped about by God. Replace your erroneous or negative thoughts and viewpoints with the truth, and completely resolve the negative emotions that have been entangling you. This is the path to resolving negative emotions. Some people say, "I haven't noticed any negative emotions in myself so far." Don't worry. Sooner or later, at the right time, in the appropriate environment, or when you reach the appropriate age or a special significant juncture in life, these negative emotions will naturally emerge. You don't have to consciously look or dig for them. More or less, to some extent, they exist in everyone's hearts. That's because people live in the human world. No one approaches anything like a computer would, without bringing their own thoughts and viewpoints into consideration. And people's thoughts are active. They're like a container capable of receiving positive and negative things. Unfortunately, long before people started accepting positive thoughts and viewpoints, they already accepted various erroneous and incorrect thoughts and viewpoints from Satan, society, and the corrupt humankind. These incorrect thoughts and viewpoints have filled the depths of people's souls, severely impacting and interfering with their daily lives and life paths. Therefore, at the same time, as various negative thoughts and viewpoints accompany people's lives and their existence, various negative emotions also accompany their lives and the path of their existence. So, regardless of the individual, one day you will discover that not only do you have a few temporary negative emotions, you have many. Not only do you possess one negative thought or viewpoint, numerous negative thoughts and viewpoints exist in you simultaneously. Although they have yet to be revealed, it is only because there is no suitable environment, appropriate time, or trigger that might cause you to expose your erroneous thoughts and viewpoints, or vent and reveal your negative emotions, or that environment or time has not yet arrived. If one of these factors comes into play, it will act as a fuse, igniting your negative emotions and negative thoughts and viewpoints so that they explode. You will involuntarily be influenced, controlled, and bound by them. They may even become an obstruction for you and influence your choices. It is only a matter of time. It's because the various negative emotions we have fellowshipped about are issues that may be encountered in people's life or on the path of their existence, and they are realistic problems faced by every person in their life or existence. They are not empty, but concrete. Because these negative emotions directly involve the principles one should uphold and the outlook on survival they should have, it is necessary for us to carefully dig into and dissect these issues. Previously, we fellowshipped about the negative emotion of repression. How many times did we fellowship about the issue of repression?
We fellowshipped about it twice.
What did we fellowship about the first time?
The first time we fellowshipped about how people often cannot do as they please, giving rise to negative emotions of repression. The second time, we fellowshipped about how people cannot utilize their expertise and often live in a state of repressed negative emotions.
We fellowshipped about these two aspects. From them, can we say that behind these two types of repression, there are similarly hidden thoughts and viewpoints regarding how people approach life? The first type, which stems from the inability to do as one pleases, represents what kind of thought or viewpoint? It is the mindset of always wanting to be willful and irresponsible, doing things based on impulse, mood, feeling, and interest, without understanding the need to take on responsibility. Isn't this a certain attitude people adopt toward life? It is also a survival method. Is this a positive attitude and survival method? It is not positive. People always want to live as they please, doing things willfully based on mood, interest, and hobbies. This is not the correct way of living. It is negative and needs to be resolved. Of course, the negative emotions arising from this negative attitude and survival method should be resolved even more so. The other type is negative emotions of repression that emerge from the inability to utilize one's own expertise. When people cannot demonstrate their expertise, showcase themselves, reflect their individual value, receive validation from others, or satisfy their own preferences, they feel unhappy, melancholy, and repressed. Is this a correct method and perspective of existing?
No.
Incorrect things ought to be changed, and the truth should be sought in order to resolve them, and replace them with the right way that aligns with the truth and normal humanity. We previously fellowshipped about these two reasons behind the emergence of repressive emotions, such as the inability to do as one pleases, and the inability to utilize one's expertise. There is another reason for the emergence of repressive emotions. Can you think of what it is? What are some other things related to one's own existential viewpoint that can make people feel repressed? Not sure? Another reason is feeling repressed and giving rise to negative emotions of repression, because one cannot fulfill their ideals and desires. Think about this for a moment. Does this issue of repression exist? Is it a real problem for humans? The people we discussed earlier, who wish to do as they please, tend to be more self-centered and willful. Their attitude toward life is characterized by acting on their impulses and doing whatever they want. They prefer to lord themselves over others, and are not suited to living in a community. Their survival method is to make everyone else revolve around them, and they are selfish and unable to live in harmony or collaborate harmoniously with others. The second type of person who gives rise to repression is someone who always wants to show off, to put themselves on display, who thinks they are all that's necessary and never gives others the space to exist. As long as they possess a bit of expertise or talent, they'll want to exhibit it regardless of whether the environment is suitable or whether their expertise is valuable or can be used in God's house. This kind of person also tends to emphasize individualism, right? Are all of these involved in people's survival methods? Both these methods of living and survival are incorrect. Now, let's return to the negative emotions of repression we discussed earlier, that arise from not being able to fulfill one's ideals and desires. Regardless of the occasion, environment, or period, and no matter what kind of work they engage in, they always center on the goal of realizing their own ideals and desires, making it their standard. If they cannot realize or accomplish this purpose, they feel repressed and sad. Isn't this also a survival method for a certain type of person? This is also a survival method for certain people. So, what is the main thought or viewpoint of those who live by this survival method? It is that as long as they have ideals and desires, regardless of where they are or what they are doing, their purpose is to realize their own ideals and desires. This is their survival method and their goal. Regardless of the price others have to pay or the sacrifices others have to make, regardless of how many people have to bear the burden or sacrifice their own personal interests for their ideals and desires, they will pursue the goal of realizing their own ideals and desires without giving up. They are even willing to step on the shoulders of others or sacrifice others' interests without hesitation. If they cannot achieve this goal, they feel repressed. Is this kind of thought or viewpoint correct?
No,
What is wrong with it?
it's too selfish.
Is the term selfish positive or negative? It is a negative and adverse thing, so it must be resolved based on the truth. How should one resolve these repressed emotions that arise from being unable to fulfill their ideals and desires? Let's first examine the various ideals and desires that people have. How about starting our fellowship from there? Starting our fellowship from what ideals and desires people have makes it easier for people to understand and follow a clear train of thought. So let's first take a look at the ideals and desires that people have. Some ideals and desires are realistic, while others are unrealistic. Some people have idealistic ideals, while others have realistic ones. Should we first fellowship about the ideals of idealists or the ideals of realists?
The realistic ones.
The realistic ones. What about unrealistic ideals? Should we fellowship about them or not? If we don't fellowship about them, will people be aware of them? If they won't be aware of them without fellowshipping, then we truly need to fellowship about them. Often, even without fellowshipping, people can perceive the ideals of realists. These things exist in everyone's thoughts and consciousness. Some ideals and desires remain unchanged from childhood to adulthood, regardless of whether they are realized or not, while others change with age. As people grow older and their knowledge, horizon, and experience expand, their ideals and desires constantly change. They become more realistic, closer to real life, and more specific. For example, some people wanted to become a singer when they were young, but as they grew up, they realized they couldn't stay in tune, so becoming a singer was not realistic. Then they thought about becoming an actor. Several years later, they looked in the mirror and realized they weren't very attractive. Although they were slightly taller, they weren't good at acting, and their expressions didn't look very natural. Being an actor was also unrealistic. So, they thought about becoming a director instead, so they could direct movies for actors. When they reached their 20s and had to choose a major in college, their ideal changed into becoming a director. After graduation, when they received their diploma for directing and entered the real world, they realized that being a director required fame and prestige, required qualifications, as well as financial resources, which they lacked in every respect. No one would hire them as a director. Therefore, they had to settle for less and find their way in the film industry, perhaps as a script supervisor or a production coordinator. Over time, they thought, being a producer might suit me. I enjoy being busy and raising money. I can speak well, and I'm reasonably good looking. People don't find me irritating, and I can communicate well with others and win their favor. Producing might be a good fit for me. You see, their ideal gradually changed. Why did it change? It initially changed because their thoughts gradually matured. Their perception of things became more accurate, more objective and practical. Then, living in the real world, based on their real-life environment and the practical needs and pressures of life, their previous ideals were gradually altered by that environment. At a dead end, unable to become a director, they chose to become a producer instead. But did becoming a producer actually realize their ideals or not? They couldn't quite figure it out themselves. Anyway, once they started, they did it for about 10 years or even until retirement. This is a general overview of the ideals of realists.